We're back at VeeamON 2022. We're here at the Aria in Las Vegas. Dave Vellante with Dave Nicholson. Bill Andrews is here. He's the president and CEO of ExaGrid. Mass boy. Bill, thanks for coming on theCUBE.
Thanks for having me.
So, hearing a lot about, obviously, data protection, cyber resiliency. What's the big picture trends that you're seeing when you talk to customers?
Well, I think clearly we were talking just a few minutes ago, data is growing like crazy, right? This morning, I think they said it was 28% growth a year, right? So data is doubling almost just a little less than every 3 years. And then you get the attacks on the data, which was the keynote speech this morning as well, right? All about the ransomware attacks. So we've got more and more data, and that data is more and more under attack. So I think those are the two big themes.
So, ExaGrid's a company that's been around for a long time. You kind of been the steady kind of Eddie, if you will. Tell us about ExaGrid. Maybe share with us some of the differentiators that you share with customers.
Sure. So specifically, let's say in the Veeam world, you know, you're backing up your data, and you really only have two choices. You can back that up to disk, so some primary storage disk from a Dell or a Hewlett Packard or a NetApp or somebody, or you're going to back it up to what's called an inline deduplication appliance, maybe a Dell Data Domain or an HPE Store ones, right? Okay. So what ExaGrid does is we've taken the best of both those, but not the challenges of both those, and put them together. So with disk, you're going to get fast backups and fast restores. But because in backup you keep weeklies, monthlies, yearly retention, the cost of disk becomes exorbitant. If you go to a deduplication appliance from, let's say, the Dell or the HPs, the data comes in, has to be deduplicated, compare one backup to the next to reduce that storage, which lowers the cost, so fixes that problem. But the fact that they do it inline slows the backups down dramatically. All the data is deduplicated, so the restores are slow, and then the backup window keeps growing as the data grows because they're all scale-up technologies.
And the restores are slow because you got to rehydrate.
You got to rehydrate every time. So what we did is we said you got to have both. So our appliances have a front-end disk cache landing zone. So you write directly to disk. Nothing else happens to it. Whatever speed the backup app can write at, that's the speed we take it in at. And then we keep the most recent backups in that landing zone ready to go. So you want to boot a VM, it's not an hour like a deduplication appliance, it's a minute or two. Secondly, we then deduplicate the data into a second tier, which is a repository tier, where we have all the deduplicated data for the long-term retention, which gets the cost down. And on top of that, we're scale out. Every appliance has networking, processor, memory, and disk. So if you double, triple, quadruple the data, you double, triple, quadruple everything. And if the backup window is 6 hours at 100 terabyte, it's 6 hours at 200 terabyte, 500 terabyte, a petabyte, doesn't matter.
As you scale out.
Right. And then lastly, our repository tier is non-network facing. We're the only ones in the industry with this, so that under a ransomware attack, if you get hold of a rogue server or you hack the media server, get to the backup storage, whether it's disk or a deduplication appliance, you can wipe out all the backup data. So you have nothing to recover from.
Right.
In our case, you wipe it out, our landing zone will be wiped out. We're no different than anything else that's network facing. However, the only thing that talks to our repository tier is our object code. And we've set up security policies as to how long before you want us to delete data, let's say 10 days, so that if you have an attack on Monday, that data doesn't get deleted till like a week from Monday, or till a week from Thursday, let's say. So you can freeze the system at any time and do restores. And then we have immutable data objects and all the other stuff. But the combination of a non-network facing tier and the fact that we do the delayed deletes makes us the only one in the industry that can actually truly recover. And that's accelerating our growth, of course.
Wow, great description. So that disk cache layer is a memory, it's a flash?
It's disk. It's spinning disk.
Spinning disk, okay.
Yeah, no different than any other disk.
And then the tiered is what, less expensive spinning disk?
No, it's still the same. It's all SAS disk because you want the quality, right? So it's all SAS, and so we use Western Digital or Seagate drives just like everybody else. The difference is that we're not doing any deduplication coming in or out of that landing zone to have fast backups and fast restores. So think of it like this. You've got disk and you say, boy, it's too expensive. What I really want to do then is put maybe a deduplication appliance behind it to lower the cost, or reverse it. I've got a deduplication appliance. It's too slow for backups and restores. I really want to throw disk in front of it to have fast backups first. Basically, that's what we did.
So where does the cost savings bill come in, though, on the tier?
The cost savings comes in the fact that we got deduplication in that repository. So only the most recent backups have deduplicated data. But let's say you had 40 copies of retention.
Yep.
You know, 10 weeklies, 36 monthlies, a few yearlies. All of that's deduplicated.
Okay, so you're deduping the stuff that's not as current.
Right.
Okay.
And only a handful of us deduplicate at the layer we do. In other words, Deduplication could be anywhere from 2 to 1 up to 50 to 1.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all over the place
VMs,
depending on the algorithm.
Sure.
No, it's what everybody's algorithms do. You know,
Right.
some backup apps do 2 to 1, some do 5 to 1. You know, we do 20 to 1 as much as 50 to 1, depending on the data types.
Yeah, so the workload's going to largely determine that
the
in
content
combination
type,
with the
right.
algos, right?
Yeah, the content type.
So the part of the environment that's behind the logical air gap, if you will, is deduped data.
Yes.
So in this case, is it fair to say that you're trading a positive economic value for a little bit longer restore from that environment?
No, because if you think about backup, 95% of the customers restores it from the most recent data.
From the disk cache.
95% of the time. Because you think about, why do you need fast restores? Somebody deleted a file. Somebody overwrote a file. They come to work, they can't open a file. It's encrypted, it's corrupted. That's what IT people are trying to keep users productive.
Right.
When do you go for longer term retention data? It's an SEC audit. It's a HIPAA audit. It's a legal discovery. You don't need that data right away. You have days and weeks to get that ready for that legal discovery or that audit. So we found that boundary where you keep users productive by keeping the most recent data in the disk cache landing zone, but anything that's long term, and by the way, everyone else is long term, right? At that point.
Yeah, so the economics are comparable to the dedupe up front. Are they better? Obviously, you get the performance advantage.
So we will be a lot. The thing we replace the most, believe it or not, is disk. We're a lot less expensive than disk. I was meeting with some Veeam folks this morning, and we were up against Cisco 3260 disk at a children's hospital, and our quote was $500,000. The disk was $1.4 million, just to give you an example of the savings. On a data domain, we're typically about half the price of a data domain.
Really? Now,
The reason why is their front-end controller is so expensive. They need the fastest chip on the planet because they're trying to do inline deduplication.
Yeah, so
They
they're
need
chasing the
fastest
chips
memory
all
on
the
planet.
time. Yeah,
they
yeah.
need SSD on there to move the in and out of the hash table. In order to keep up with inline, they've got to throw so much compute at it that it drives their cost up.
But now in the case of a ransomware attack,
Yeah.
are you saying that the landing zone is still available for recovery in some circumstances? Or are you expecting that that disk landing zone would be encrypted by the attacker?
All right, so those are two different things. One is deletion, one's encryption.
Yep.
So let's do the first scenario. The first scenario is...
I'm talking about malicious encryption.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So the first scenario is the threat actor encrypts all your primary data.
Yep.
What's you go for next? The backup data, because he knows that's your belt and suspenders to not pay the ransom. If it's disk, he's going to go in and put delete commands at the disk, wipe out the disk. If it's a data domain or HP he still wants, it's all going to be gone because it's one tier. He's going to go after our landing zone. It's going to be gone too. It's going to wipe out our landing zone. Except behind that, we have the most recent backup deduplicated in the repository as well as all the other backups. So what will happen is they'll freeze the system because we weren't going to delete anything in the repository for X days because you set up a policy. And then you restore the most recent backup into the landing zone, or you can restore it directly to your primary storage area.
Okay.
Right?
because that tier is not network facing.
That's right.
It's fenced off, essentially.
People call us every day of the week saying, you saved me. You saved me again. People coming up to me here, you saved me. You saved
Tell us a story about that. I mean, I'm not going to name names, but how so?
I'll actually do a funnier story because these are the ones that our vendors like to tell, right? Because I'm self-serving as the CEO of ExaGrid, of course, right?
It's your
little
15
humor.
minutes.
It's your job.
This is my 15 minutes of fame. So we had one international company who had one ExaGrid at one location and 19 data domains at the other locations. Ransomware attack, guess what? 19 data domains wiped out, the one ExaGrid, the only place they could restore. So now all 20 locations, of course, are ExaGrids. China, Russia, Mexico, Germany, US, et cetera. They rolled us out worldwide. So it's very common for that to occur. And think about why that is. Everyone who's network facing, you can get to the storage. You can say, well, the media servers are buttoned up. But I can find a rogue server and snake my way over to storage. I can. Now, we also, of course, support the Veeam Data Mover. So let's talk about that since we're at a Veeam conference. We were the first company to ever integrate the Veeam Data Mover. So we were the first, actually, ever integration with Veeam. And so that Veeam Data Mover is a protocol that goes from Veeam to the ExaGrid, and we run it on both ends. So that's a more secure protocol, because it's not an open format protocol like CIFS. So with running the Veeam Data Mover, we get about 30% more performance, but you do have a more secure protocol layer. So if you don't get through Veeam, but you get through the protocol, boom, we've got a stronger protocol. If you make it through that somehow, or you get to it from a rogue server somewhere else, we still have the repository. So we have all these layers so that you can't get at it.
So you guys have been at this for a while, I mean, a decade and a half plus. And you've raised a fair amount of money, but in today's terms, not really. So you just had really strong growth, sequential growth, if I understand it, and double-digit growth year on year.
Yeah, about 25% a year right now.
25%. What's your global strategy?
So we have sales offices in about 30 countries already. So we have 3 sales teams in Brazil, and 3 in Germany, and 3 in the UK, and 2 in France, and a lot of individual countries: Chile, Argentina, Colombia, Mexico, South Africa, Saudi, Czech Republic, Poland, Dubai, Hong Kong, Australia, Singapore, etc. We just added 2 sales territories in Japan, we're adding 2 in India, and we're installed in over 50 countries. So we've been international all along the way. The goal of the company is we're growing nicely. We have not raised money in almost 10 years.
So you're self-funding.
We are cash positive and self-funded, and people say, how have you done that for 10 years?
You know what's interesting is I remember, Dave Scott. Dave Scott was the CEO of 3PAR, and he told me when he came into that job, he told the VCs, they wanted to give him 30 million. He said, I need 80 million. I think he might have raised closer to 100, which is right around what you guys have raised. But that, like you said, you haven't raised it in a long time. And in today's terms, that's nothing, right?
100's 500 in today's terms.
Yeah, right, exactly. And so the thing that really hurt 3PAR, they were public companies, so you could see all this stuff, is they couldn't expand internationally. It was just too damn expensive to set up the channels, and somehow you guys have figured that out.
40% of our business comes out of international. We're growing faster internationally than we are domestically.
What was the formula there, Bill? Was that just slow and steady? Or?
No, so what we did, we said, let's build ExaGrid like a McDonald's franchise. Nobody's ever done that before in high tech. So what does that mean? That means you have to have the same product worldwide. You have to have the same spares model worldwide. You have to have the same support model worldwide. So we, early on, built the installation so we do 100% of our installs remotely. 100% of our support remotely, yet we're in large enterprises. Customer racks and stacks the appliances. We get on with them. We do the entire install in 30 minutes to about 3 hours. And we've been developing that into the product since day one. So we can remotely install anywhere in the world. We have spares depots all over the world. We can bring them up really quick. Our support model is we have in-theater support people. So they're in Europe, they're in APAC, they're in the US, et cetera. So, and we assign customers to the support people. So they deal with the same support person all the time. So everything is scalable. So right now we're going to open up India. It's the same way we've opened up every other country. Once you've got the McDonald's formula, we just stamp it all over the world.
That's
same
amazing.
pricing, same product, same model, same everything.
So what was the inspiration for that? I mean, you've done this since day one, which is what, like 15, 16 years ago? Just
so our whole thought was, first of all, you can't survive anymore in this world without being an international company, because if you're going to go after large companies, they have offices all over the world.
Yeah, right.
We have companies now that have 17, 18, 20, 30 locations, and they're in every country in the world. You can't go into this business without being able to ship anywhere in the world and support it for a single customer. You're not going into Singapore because of that. You're going into Singapore because some company in Germany has offices in the US, Mexico, Singapore, and Australia. You have to be international. It's a must now. So that was the initial thing, is that you're never going to become our goal is to become a $1 billion company. We're on path to do that. Right?
You can see $1 billion.
Well, I can absolutely see $1 billion. And we're bigger than everybody thinks. Everybody guesses our revenue, always guesses low. So we're bigger than you think. And the reason why we don't talk about it is we don't need to.
That's the headline for our writers. ExaGrid, $1 billion company.
$1 billion company.
Knows about it, on its way to $1 billion.
That's right.
Not disclosing. Yeah. But that's awesome. I mean, that's a great story. I mean, you kind of are a well-kept secret, aren't you?
Well, I don't know if it's a well-kept secret. Smaller companies never have the awareness of big companies, right? The Dells of the world are 100 billion, IBM 70 billion, Cisco 60 billion. Easy to have awareness, right? If you're under $1 billion, I'll give you a funny story, then I think we got to close out here.
Oh,
so this is a funny story. So I was talking to the CIO of a super large Fortune 500 company, and I said to him, just so who do you use? I use IBM DB2, and I use Cisco routers, and I use EMC primary storage, et cetera, and I use all these big, and I said, would you ever switch from DB2? Oh no, the switching costs would kill me. I could never go to Oracle. Would you ever, so I said to him, look, would you ever use like a Pure Storage, right? $2 billion company. He says, who?
Huh, interesting.
I said to him, all right, so skip that. I said, VMware, would you ever think about going with Nutanix? Who? Those are billion-dollar-plus companies. And he was saying who?
Public companies.
And he was saying who? That's not uncommon when I talk to CIOs.
Yeah.
They see the big 30, and that's it.
No, that's interesting. What about your partnership with Veeam? Tell us more about that.
Yeah, so I would actually, and I'm going to be bold when I say this, because I think you can ask anybody here at the conference. We're probably closer, first of all, to the Veeam sales force than any company there is. You talk to any Veeam sales rep, they work closer with ExaGrid than any other.
Really?
Yeah, we are very tight in the field and have been for a long time. We're integrated with the Veeam Data Boom. We're integrated with Soba. We're integrated with all the integrations with the product as well. We have a lot of joint customers. We actually do a lot of selling together, where we go in as Veeam ExaGrid because it's a great end-to-end story. Especially when we're replacing, let's say, a Dell Avamart, a Dell Data Domain, or a Dell Network, or a Dell Data Domain. Very common that Veeam ExaGrid go in together on those types of sales. So we do a lot of co-selling together. We constantly train their systems engineers around the world. Every given week, we're training either inside sales teams, or and we've trained the customer support teams in Columbus and Prague. And so we're very tight with them. We've been tight for over a decade.
Is your headcount public? Can you share that with us?
So we're just over 300 employees.
Really? Wow.
We have 70 open positions, so.
Yeah. What are you looking for? Yeah, everything, right?
We are looking for engineers. We are looking for customer support people. We're looking for marketing people. We're looking for inside sales people, field people. And we've been hiring, as of late, major account reps that just focus on the Fortune 500. So we've separated that out now.
When you hire engineers, I mean, I think I saw you were a long time ago, DG, right? Is that true?
Yeah, way back in the 80s.
But systems guy.
That's how old I am.
Right, systems guy. I mean, I remember them well. Ed DeCastro and company, Tom
The
West.
MV series.
Tom West was the hero
The
of ours.
MV 4000, the MV 20,000, right?
When we were kids, The Soul of the New Machine was the inspirational book. But
Oh, yeah,
anyway,
Tracy Kidd, it was great.
Are you looking for systems people? What kind of talent are you looking for in engineering?
So it's a lot of Linux programming type stuff in the product because we run on a Linux base. So it's a lot of Linux programs and it's people who know storage.
Yeah, cool. Bill, hey, thanks for coming on theCUBE. I learned a lot. Great story.
That was fun.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
And good luck.
All right, thank you.
All right, and thank you for watching theCUBE's coverage of VeeamON 2022. Dave Vellante for Dave Nicholson. We'll be right back right after this short break. Stay with us.